We did talk last on September 10th. It was just before the longest U.S. government shutdown began. It's now over. The data desert is no more. What's your read on the U.S. economy as we start to get some data points?
Well, first of all, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on. And by the way, my head is spinning thinking about all the politics that's going on and all this AI productivity stuff. And now we've got all the data. So there's going to be a lot of more spinning going around. And I mean, so far, we haven't had a very clear read on the economy from some of the data that we've seen so far. I mean, I guess I could say that it's been pretty still steady, resilient, if you will. But, you know, the data are kind of old, right? And I sort of have to wonder, you know, how much we're going to see in terms of revisions in the coming months as well, just given that the shutdown seems like it just ended and, you know, everyone was like, hustle back to work and let's start getting those surveys and all the data points out. So I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt. Plus all of this data is coming before the shutdown, before that 43-day long shutdown. So we're going to see some highs. We're probably going to see some lows. So we're going to have to probably go towards the new year before we start seeing some cleaner data because the shutdown will be over unless it starts again on January 30th. And of course, we're going to see some revisions. So far, I will say this is a long-winded way of answering your question. So far, it seems like it's okay.
Not ready to start talking about another government shutdown at this point, Jennifer. Before we get there, we'll get some other data. Even during the shutdown, we did get some alternative data, and it seemed to indicate, and also commentary coming from companies, that the labor market in the U.S. is weakening. And I wonder which part of the Fed's dual mandate the Fed should be more focused on right now. Is it stable prices or is it maximum employment?
I think right now the focus is on the job market. If you had asked me this like a month ago or so, I would have said inflation, and I would have been very lonely, I think, saying that, because at that point I was still quite concerned about inflation, and I was saying that it's still too early, even though we were like in October and all that. But just the fact that we are seeing some deals being made, we're seeing tariffs being lowered, you know, I think it was like this morning or over the weekend, you know, with some tariffs of 40% being brought down from Brazil, for example. So that will help food prices come down a little bit in the U.S. So that gives me some comfort that we are seeing inflation, you know, we should be seeing inflation moderate in the months ahead. Because of that, I'm thinking that the Fed is probably rightfully focusing on the jobs front, and we'll have to see how that happens. I think, you know, it's basically a coin toss at this point with the December meeting between inflation and all that. But I think they're going to err on the side of caution and focus on jobs and probably go for another 25 basis point cut on December 10th.
Do you have any clarity when it comes to 2026?
We are still seeing, and again, this is all hopefully like a lot of these tariffs and all these deals will be settled by earlier in the year, and we'll hopefully see inflation, you know, moderating further. And because we'll see some clarity on the trade front, we should hopefully see some of the job market indicators leveling off as well, being a little bit more steady. Because I think a lot of the worker or employers earlier in the year did not know what was going on the trade front, so they were holding off on hiring and firing or laying off workers, but they held off for a long time, and now we're starting to see some of those layoffs come into play. We saw like a big increase in the number of permanent layoffs, for example, in that September jobs report. So hopefully with some clarity on that front, some clarity on the fiscal front, and then now we're going to be focusing on the USMCA. We're going to be focusing on the midterms, which is not until November, but, you know, time just goes by just like that, right? So with some clarity again on the trade front, tariffs coming down, I think that will hopefully be a little bit better on for jobs. But in the meantime, we still look for, after a December rate cut, we still look for about 3 more rate cuts to come from the Fed, just kind of spaced out on a quarterly basis.